Hi, and welcome to another episode of CVC Interviews. My name is Joyce Vaudreuil from Vernon, and I'm here today to talk to, well, he goes by Bill, but I like calling him William Penn. Bill's here to talk about a really cool organization called the Norton Commission based in the town of Andover. And what I want everyone to know is there are so many cool and fun things out there that's available to folks in Andover, specifically with Bill, but also a lot of great adventures you can have out there. So, Bill, what can you tell me about the Norton Commission? And welcome to CVC.
Thank you for having me here, Joyce. Norton's Children's Fund Commission was established, has been around for over 100 years. It was established by Chester Norton, who was a farmer. And the legend, and I say legend because I've never validated this, but this is how our writing says, the legend has it that when he was a young child, he was in need of eyeglasses and his family was not of the means to be able to provide them. A gentleman in town provided him these sunglasses, kind of like paying it forward back over 100 years ago. Yep. And he got these eyeglasses and felt they changed his life and made his life better. So when he, in his will, he arranged that he was going to leave money for the town of Andover and a couple other things, and one of them was to establish this Norton Children's Fund, which the town has been administering for over 100 years. And
how much did he have to start the fund?
My understanding was it was $3,000 back then.
Wow, you guys really made it stretch.
Which over 100 years ago was a considerable sum of money.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the idea, like most funds, is to not tap into the principal. You guys are only working off of the interest.
That is correct.
And that's why you're able to keep this going.
Yes.
So one of the things you folks are well known for, and we'll talk about some of the things that people may not know yet, but you have a wonderful scholarship program for a senior student of Andover. Can you tell me a little bit about it, and what does someone need to do to submit for it if they have a senior in high school?
Sure. We're always trying to publicize this. We use Facebook, whatever means, Instagram, and other social media things, as well as we value the guidance counselors who help point Andover students in that direction about the availability of the scholarship. So all they have to do is, we have a website that we're under the Town of Andover website. Go to Town of Andover, then you go to government, and there's a thing for a link for appointed officials as opposed to appointed commissions, as opposed to elected commissions. So we are appointed, we're not elected. You go there and it'll give more details of the history I just briefly explained. And then there's a link there that you can click on that takes you to the form to fill out and submit for the scholarship.
It's wonderful. CVC will be sure to put the full address, the link, so folks will be able to find you a little bit better. Also with your social media, that'll all be on the screen too for folks to follow you and to keep up to date with what's going on. Now, as an ex-high school teacher, I'm very excited whenever there is scholarship money for students. My understanding is that your scholarship is valid. You only have to be an Andover senior going to not just a 2-year or 4-year school, but you'll give a grant to someone going to learn a trade.
That is correct. In fact, one of our scholarship recipients, I think it was 3-4 years ago, went to a trade school. So yes, it's open to that also, which I'm very, very glad to see, because not everybody's college or university material, and trade schools are not inexpensive either.
No, they're not. And then people forget that you don't get your tools for free. So whether you are a cosmetologist, like some of the students that I work with in my other life out of Monty Tech, you need to build up your toolkit. So you may not necessarily have to use the grant for your tuition on it, or you use it for your tuition, then your tuition money can go towards your tools.
Correct.
So I think that's just great. What is the deadline for people to submit for a scholarship?
The deadline every year is May May 1st. Our commission meets twice a year in May and November. So after we get the applicants by May 1st, our group of 5 sit down and review them and talk about them, look at their responses and make an evaluation and determination of who will be awarded the scholarship.
So what's something that you or some of your fellow board members would like to see in a scholarship application?
It's not just grade-based. One of the things we look at is activities. What other activities do they do? Be it sports, clubs, and the like. Are they working? Do they work outside of school? We have a rubric that we use to kind of weigh their responses, so we can come up with a score, for lack of a better word.
It's hard. Yes, it's difficult. I've been part of committees like that, so it can be very, someone might strike you as, it touches my soul, and so yes, the more information they can give you.
The more information, because some applicants are just very just the facts, ma'am, and they're listing their clubs or whatever, without giving a little bit more detail, which helps us understand a little bit more. Like,
Gotcha.
They were this for 2 years, or I was interested in this because, details help.
Sure, something
They give
like
us more information.
I'm in the photography club because I was told I have a good eye, and so I've been taking pictures. So you want to know more about all these activities and not necessarily just academic.
Correct.
I love it. That's wonderful. And we were talking about this earlier too, is that with your scholarships, that you not only do things with education and seniors, but you have grant money available to any family with children under the age of 18.
Correct. The interests that we accumulate and are able to use for granting the scholarships. The other key thing we do is we have an application for financial assistance, also on that website I was referring to, and it's for any needs. Anybody. Unfortunately, I'll be honest, we don't get as many applicants as we would like. So we're always.
So what are some
looking
of
for
the
that.
things? So personally, I know your organization really helped out a friend of mine with a very special type of grant that helped her son. What are some of the things that, could someone do it if they needed, say, assistance with food, or with a uniform for going to a sports, if they want to be in a sports activity, you got to pay for your uniform. Some of these things that you guys would.
Yes,
Yeah.
those are things we would certainly consider and review. We have done food donations for food. There was a family that had a crisis. I'm trying to remember now the crisis, but they had something that temporarily put them in need, so they applied, and we reviewed the application and said, we can certainly help these people out in this for this short-term need that they have. So that's.
And unlike the scholarships, the school scholarships, you folks review these on a regular basis. So someone could submit something any time of the year, and you folks all meet as a board, or you not meet, but you guys all decide on a regular basis where the money goes?
Yes, well, if we don't get a lot of applications for the financial need, but when we do, usually when someone's applying for a financial need, it's something more urgent, and you don't want to delay. So we will meet to discuss that. Even if we don't meet in person, we'll have a Zoom meeting, or we'll communicate via email or something like that, just to discuss and get opinions and make a decision as soon as we can, because sometimes you don't want to delay.
What was exciting for me tonight, because I've done a lot of interviews and I love getting the word out about organizations like yours. But I love, you're here because you want to give money away. You don't have enough people asking you for it. And a donation, you're still doing fundraising, and you still want people to donate, and we'll have that information where to mail a check to. So that's an interesting twist, is that you want to get the word out to people that you have this opportunity to help somebody. And it could be something short, very short term, like that person, they were looking for a gap, but also for something like eyeglasses.
Right. Well, it's interesting. If you look at the commission history, I was looking it over to refresh my memory. But when you look at the various things that have been given out over the years, like eyeglass, somebody else down the road got eyeglasses, eye exams. This is a funny one. Cod liver oil was one of the things they talk about, that somebody got dental exams. So there's a whole range of things that over the 100+ years that have gone out there to assist people.
Not everybody is eligible for Husky Health or some of those other things. So if you're not, and a lot of those insurance companies don't cover eyeglasses, so I don't know. Again, I worked in the school system. I've seen a lot of broken glasses. Kids can be rough on glasses. You do have a lot of cool things about getting the word out and let families know you're there. Tell me about the Norton number. That seemed like a fun thing.
Yeah, every year we do, with the Andover Elementary School, we do this thing called Guess the Norton number. So we have a container that's filled with, it could be anything. It was, one year it was beans. Another year it was Q-tips. And what we do is all the kids in the school have the opportunity to guess whatever number they think of those items are in that container. And then we give them a week or two, because all classes visit the library. It's in the library.
Yeah.
So we give them time for all the classes to get there. And then we collect their answers, and we see who gets closest to that number. We give 3 or 4 gift certificates to the Hoot in Willimantic. And it's what we do is, before we talk about publicity, one of the reasons we do this is for publicity, because every child who goes to the school will get a letter that goes home that explains what the Norton Children's Fund Commission is.
Very good.
It gives a little bit of the history. It tells about the financial assistance and what we do with the scholarship also. So we're trying to, again, make people aware of us.
That's right. So if there are businesses in the area, they could donate prizes or gift certificates like the Hoot did.
Yes, exactly.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. So we yeah, a lot of times, or even we'll buy the gift certificates if they're not available. We'll supply them for
Out of the funds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, from our personal funds.
Again, I was a public school teacher. I know what that's like.
Yes.
Again, I get very excited about this because families are always struggling. It doesn't matter the economy. Ever since I was a little kid, okay, families struggle. But to know things are out there with just regular folks ready to give them to you. I like you and I were talking about what our future programs you guys are working on. What's one you guys are talking about running? Is it the one about the school supplies?
Yes, we're evaluating. We discussed it at our last meeting in November. Like, what else can we do?
Yeah.
And one of the things that we were considering a number of different things. In the past, we've given some gift certificates for the food pantry, additional funds for people who are Andover families with children, because we speak to the people who run the pantry and know who those. We don't know their names, but we know there's this many. So we've given some gift certificates in the past to help support those families to get additional things for their Thanksgiving meal. So we felt we would target our attention to the Andover Elementary School, since that's right in our backyard.
Yeah.
Everybody goes there.
Yes, yes.
And younger kids, their needs, trying to meet their needs. So that's where we came up with this idea. We're considering as a backpack program, or next fall we would give backpacks to children in need in the town of Andover.
Excellent.
With school supplies and the like in there.
Oh yes, we always need that.
Yes.
I have found there are so many different organizations out there that it's hard to find out what's there. We've got diaper banks and food banks and things. So to be able to say, well, the things I need don't fall in those categories, that's when they can call you.
Yes.
So if it's an interesting need, it doesn't fall into a regular category, log on to the website, right?
Correct.
Click on the form, and you just don't know. I'm sorry. I wanted to mention that your scholarship programs for high school seniors are also for homeschoolers. So if you're a homeschool student that's also looking for a scholarship, you're also eligible, as long as you're going to a trade 1 or 2 year school. So very inclusive. I like that. Very inclusive. So now what we were talking about is the fact we want people to use the services, but also you do collect donations. You accept donations by check for now. we had a conversation about that. So your organization is looking at things like PayPal and Zelle to make payments a little bit easier for donations?
We should explore that. Another organization I'm involved with, we just started that, and I'm not a young person, so I'm not as in tune with all those newer methods.
That's why I'm going easy on you, Bill.
But I understand. I do appreciate that, Joyce. It's that's something we should explore, because we do get checks. We do have. We do get a number of checks, and thankfully, because that's we can use that right away. We're not
Right,
as opposed to having to just live off the interest, and it helps fund these additional things we want to do, as well as grants we may apply for and things like that. So that's how we can supplement the limited funds that we have that are provided by the interest on the accounts.
Yes, most definitely, most definitely. So. In summary, this is what I love about you guys. So you support education. You also support things that are needed in families with children, but are not necessarily covered under the traditional ways. What do you mean by you're an appointed commission?
We, like many other commissions in town, we're not elected. So we have when a need comes up, we have five members, and ideally we like to have an alternate or two also, so that if somebody does withdraw from the commission, we can then plug somebody in right away.
So someone could send you an email or get on your Facebook page and say, I'd be interested in potentially filling a slot if you needed it.
Sure.
Or a volunteer that when you do your backpack thing.
Exactly. So we're always. When we need somebody, the River East is a local paper that covers Andover. So that's where you find all the news specific to Andover. So when we have a need, you'll see, Norton Commission has a vacancy or something like that. So we'll advertise in there. But a couple of years ago, we started with this alternate position, and that's a way of trying to have somebody on staff. Well, somebody can't make a meeting, and you have somebody who can fill in and vote and help make the decisions and all that, as opposed to waiting and not having the people. And again, if somebody withdraws, then you have somebody to plug in right away.
You were talking about another organization, Rails to Trails.
Yes.
Which I've done some bicycling on them, mostly walking, but I understand you've had a very interesting road trip recently. And it ties right into your Rails to Trails. So Bill, what did you do recently?
I cycled across the country. I cycled coast to coast.
Coast to coast. And back again?
No, flew out to Seattle. So
okay.
That made it easier. So the traditional thing to do when you cycle coast to coast is you dip your wheel in the ocean. Yes. And then you go to the other one, you dip your wheel in the ocean. So you start off, you dip your rear wheel in the ocean you're starting from, and then cycle across. So we met in Seattle. A friend of mine from England joined me on this trip, so I wasn't alone. He actually cycled across the country previously in 2014. So I'm foolish enough to do it once. He's done it twice now. So.
And he had to fly across a little pond there to get over here.
Yeah, exactly. So we met at the May 23rd, spent a couple days getting ready, and then left on May 25th, cycled to the coast to dip the wheels, and turned around and headed to the East Coast.
Wow. And how long did it take you to do that?
It was 68 days, including 5 rest days. It was a dream come true, a challenge, a bucket list item. And it was a wonderful way to see the country. Seeing small things. You think of small things like the children's fund. It's not a huge endowment or anything like that, but it's something small. And this was a way of seeing the country at 10 to 12 miles an hour, which is a very different perspective than driving at 70, 75,
which,
or 80.
And a little in between there, I've always wanted to do the motorcycle trip cross country. A friend of mine went from here to the Grand Canyon on his bike because none of us could get the time off from our jobs to go cross country with him. So like what you were saying, on a motorcycle, you get more of a sense of where you are. You have sense, the aromas of the community you're driving through. You can feel it on your skin. It just is a very different feel when you're not inside a cage.
Yes.
What they call cars a cage. Now, did you do that before or after you were part of the Rails to Trails Commission?
I've been, I'm not on the board, but I volunteer and support the Rails and Trails thing. So I did that. That committee is the Hop River Trail Alliance, is a recently formed 501c3 for the Hop River Trail,
Yeah.
which goes from Willimantic to Manchester. So I've been cycling a lot for many years, and so this trip was just kind of like the culmination. And I was going to plan to do it in 2020, and we know.
Oh yeah, something happened, huh?
We know happened in 2020,
Yeah.
exactly. So
I don't do.
the other things kind of delayed things, and last year was like, I'm not getting any younger. I need to do this.
Good for
so
you.
I did.
Well, the flip side of 2020 was it got my husband and I on our bicycles on the Rails to Trails. We live in Vernon, and we are one street away from. Matter of fact, our neighbors across the street, their property abuts a section of it.
Oh, cool.
It really is. It's very convenient. And it was the time where we did explore, and we went a lot further on the bikes than we had ever done before. And there were a lot of people out. By 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning, let me tell you. We ended up having to get bells for our bicycles.
Well, good for you for doing that, because it can get crowded.
It can, and we got the mirrors too. So yes, it can get crowded. And as a member of the Rails to Trails, you obviously use them. What is something you'd like to give as advice to someone who didn't realize how extensive our trail system was?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, unfortunately, I live right next to the rail trail. The border is part of my property, so every
Nice.
morning I'm using it walking the dog. And I would say just get out there and explore and use it, because well, you referenced about how things exploded COVID. Living right next to the rail trail, when COVID happened, as I'm working in the yard, I could physically see the increase in people that use the trail. And in fact, there's trail counters, I don't know if you knew this, in Vernon, and there's one in Bolton Notch that actually count. They have an infrared device that senses when people go by.
Oh, cool.
And count how many people go past the sensor, and the numbers jumped up when COVID started.
I can imagine. So if you're an outdoorsy person and you really like to get out there, what's awesome about these trails is the overgrowth of forests now, because the trails hadn't been used for so long. The train tracks weren't used. So you can really kind of envision, especially riding on a bicycle on these, like what it was like seeing these scenes through a train window, and what it must have been like way back in the day.
It's and the great thing is, I know a lot of people, and I know people, friends of mine who bicycle, they're hesitant to ride on the roads for safety reasons. I don't
blame them. The fumes alone will choke you.
And I understand that, and I get that. And that's the great thing about the rail trail is, you just have occasional roads you're crossing that you have to pay attention to.
Yes, it's very safe.
But they have a lot of signs to warn the drivers to, hey, there's a crossing here.
That's right.
With walkers and cyclists and the like. So it's a great, safe way to be out there and be outside.
Most definitely. So for a guy who's retired, you're very busy. You got a lot going on. I really enjoyed talking with you about the Norton's Children's Fund Commission Fund?
Yep, Norton Children's Fund Commission.
Norton Children's Fund Commission. Got it. And you just have to submit a form, fill out, answer a few questions on the website, the form for the website for that. And you also accept donations.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And either form, the form for the scholarship and the form for financial assistance are both there.
Yes.
And they're pretty straightforward.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining us today on CVC. Please go on to the Andover Town website, check out the organization, the website address, their social media and things will be on the screen for you to follow. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.